Cults are really scary and they're getting a lot of attention on YouTube right now from various YouTubers, so I thought I would put my spin on this and read some really creepy Reddit stories about cult encounters. These all claim to be true stories and I believe them. These are terrifying, cults are terrifying. Let's get straight into this. By the way, I'm trying to hit 100K by the end of the year, so please subscribe, leave a like, go join my Discord so we can hang out, follow my Instagram, and let's get into the first story. My encounter with a terrifying cult in the woods. This happened 5 years ago in Northern California, but I won't provide more details. Feel free to ask questions. My name is Sarah, and the night my friend Emily and I stumbled upon a terrifying cult in the woods was supposed to be a fun adventure. Emily's then boyfriend had recommended the forest to us, having hiked there before. I had just moved from my home country in Europe to the US 1 year earlier because I met an American guy who had been studying in my country. Despite being an avid hiker and having explored trails in various parts of Europe and Asia, I never expected that this hike would turn into a nightmare. As a blonde girl with blue eyes, I've had my fair share of experiencing weird things and danger situations while hiking. But what we experienced that night was something out of a Hollywood movie. None of us had ever even been there before, but we had heard that it was beautiful and peaceful. As we hiked deeper into the woods, we began to notice strange symbols etched into the trees and rocks. The symbols appeared to be a mix of geometric shapes and abstract patterns. Some were simple lines and circles, while others were more complex and seemed to be intertwined with one another. Some of the symbols appeared to be repeating, while others were unique. As we hiked deeper into the woods, we saw more and more of these symbols etched into the landscape. They seemed to be guiding us towards the ritual site, as if they were marking the path of something important. It was an eerie feeling, as if we were trespassing in a sacred place that we didn't belong. I researched the meaning of the symbols later on, but it was difficult to say. They didn't seem to be connected to any specific religion or cult, but rather a product of some mystic or spiritual belief. It was as if they had been created by someone with a deep understanding of both geometry and mysticism. Looking back on it now, it's not hard to think about how strange those symbols were and what kind of belief system they might have represented. It was clear that the people performing the ritual took them very seriously and that they were an integral part of their practice, but for us, they were nothing more than mysterious etchings on the trees and rocks. At the time, we certainly noticed them and thought they were odd, but we didn't pay them much attention. We were too busy enjoying the beauty of nature around us, and the symbols seemed like just another part of the scenery. It wasn't until we heard the chanting that we realized something was wrong. Intrigued and curious, we followed the sound, hoping to see what was going on, but we certainly didn't expect to find a group of people dressed in black robes performing a ritual around a large fire. It was something straight out of a movie. The chanting grew louder and more intense, but we couldn't make out the words. These cultists, around 20 in number, were all clad in black robes, some with peculiar symbols painted on their faces and others donning eerie masks. They encircled a towering bonfire, the flames leaping high into the night sky, casting a flickering orange glow across their sinister faces. In front of the fire stood an altar adorned with flickering candles and other peculiar objects. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I watched in disbelief as one of the cultists produced a white rabbit and proceeded to sacrifice it on the altar. The chanting reached a fever pitch, and one of the cultists approached the fire with a small wooden box from within his robes. He opened it, revealing a vial containing an unknown substance which he carefully dripped onto the flames. Suddenly, my eyes were drawn to a figure on a table near the altar. A woman, her body painted with intricate designs, lay still with her eyes closed, breathing gently as if in a deep slumber. The cultists around the fire were swaying in unison, holding candles aloft as if entranced by some dark magic. As the chanting grew louder still, the woman on the table began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open and she sat up, looking around with a vacant expression. The cultists began to approach her, their faces twisted in ecstasy as if they were under some kind of spell. All of a sudden, the woman let out a piercing scream and fell back onto the table, her body writhing in agony. The cultists dispersed, their faces now twisted in frustration and disappointment, as if the ritual had somehow failed. As they wandered around in confusion, one of them spotted us, and the rest of the cultists turned their attention towards us. They looked angry, as if they blamed us for interrupting their ceremony. I could feel their menacing stares as they began to approach us, their black robes billowing in the wind. We ran as fast as we could, but they were always right behind us. "I don't think we can outrun them," Emily gasped. "We need to find somewhere to hide." I nodded in agreement and scanned our surroundings frantically. That's when we spotted an old cabin up ahead. We ran inside and slammed the door shut, hoping it would hold. We could hear the cultists pounding on the door, and we knew it was only a matter of time before they broke through. We searched the cabin for any weapons we could find, and that's when we found an old axe. We knew it wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. We huddled together, ready to defend ourselves, when suddenly we heard yelling outside, followed by the sound of wolves howling close by. It was an eerie sound that sent chills down our spines. We didn't know if it was a good or bad sign, but at least the cultists had stopped pounding on the door. We were terrified, but we finally mustered the courage to peek outside. To our shock, the cultists were gone, and there were no sign of them. It was like they had vanished into thin air. We stayed in the cabin a few hours until we decided to make a run for it back to our car. We knew it was a risk, but we couldn't stay in the cabin forever. We opened the door cautiously, ready to bolt if we saw any sign of the cultists. We ran as fast as we could through the woods. We kept moving, trying to stay on the path we had taken earlier. We didn't know how long we had been running, but our legs were starting to feel like jelly. We kept running, the dense forest started to thin out, and we could see a clearing up ahead. Just as we thought we had made it, we saw them. Two cultists emerged from the tree line, their eyes fixated on us like predators. The sight of their black robes and masks made my blood run cold. They were holding long, sharp knives in their hands, glinting menacingly in the dappled sunlight. We skidded to a stop, our hearts racing in our chests. But just as they were about to close in on us, we heard a gunshot ring out. The cultists paused for a moment, startled, and we took the opportunity to run past them. As we looked back, we saw a figure emerge from a cabin on a hill. The cabin was surrounded by a cleared radius of trees, presumably to prevent wildfires. The figure was dressed in a ranger's uniform, holding a gun in their hand. They shouted out a warning to the cultists, who seemed to think better of pursuing us any further. We kept running until we were sure we're out of danger. We collapsed on the ground, gasping for air and shaking with fear. We explained everything to the ranger, and he quickly called for backup. The police took our statements, and we led them back to the cabin where we had taken refuge. The officers searched the area, but they found no trace of the cultists. They told us that they would continue their investigation and that we should go home and stay safe. Emily and I got into our car, still trembling from the adrenaline and fear. We drove back to our homes, grateful to be alive, but still shaken by what had happened. Over the next few days, we followed the news closely, hoping for any updates on the cult and their whereabouts. But there was no news, and the incident seemed to have been forgotten. Months passed, and Emily and I tried to move on from the terrifying experience. But every time we went into the woods or heard a strange noise, we couldn't help but remember that night. One day, we both received a letter in the mail. It was a handwritten note with no return address. I opened it cautiously, unsure of what to expect. The letter read, "We know what you saw, and we know what you heard, but you should know that you are not safe. We are always watching, and we will come for you." Emily and I were terrified once again, and we immediately called the police. They assured us that they would investigate and take the letter as evidence material. However, we knew that the handwriting couldn't be recognized as belonging to any specific person, since it appeared to be deliberately messy and inconsistent, almost as if the author had written it with their non-dominant hand. We hoped that the police would be able to catch the person responsible, but we knew that it would be difficult with such little evidence. We knew that we couldn't rely on the police alone. We started taking self-defense classes and installed security cameras around our house. We never went into the woods again and always carried some form of protection with us. One becomes paranoid after such an experience, especially after receiving that letter. It felt like people were following me, strange individuals who just stood and stared. But whether it was just my imagination, I'm not sure. Years passed and we never heard from that cult again. We couldn't help but wonder if one or more of the cultists knew us. They must have obtained our addresses from somewhere, and it made us us feel uneasy. After receiving multiple reports of strange noises and suspicious activity in the woods, the police and rangers collaborated to increase patrols in the area. This led to the arrest of 3 individuals who were suspected of being involved in illegal activities such as drug trafficking and animal cruelty. During the raid, the police found evidence of animal remains and drug paraphernalia, which confirmed their suspicions about the involvement of these individuals in criminal activities. They were charged with multiple offenses, including animal cruelty, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit illegal acts. Despite the best efforts of the police and other authorities, the investigation into the strange incidents in the woods and the incidents involving us continued for several months. However, the investigation eventually closed, as they were unable to find any concrete evidence linking the arrested to those incidents. The strange incidents in the woods stopped, but the fact that most of the cultists were still free and at large left many questions unanswered and was unsettling. It was unclear if they had disbanded or if they were continuing their activities elsewhere. The police remained vigilant and continued to monitor the area, but there were no further reports of suspicious activity or strange occurrences. The incident remained a mystery, and the true intentions of the cultists and the full extent of their activities were unknown. It was a sobering reminder that there were still groups out there operating in secrecy, that we may never know the full extent of their actions. From what was discovered, it appeared that the group was attempting to summon some sort of spiritual entity or deity, using various objects like candles, incense, and herbs. It was speculated that the cultists may have been practicing some form of neo-pagan or occult religion, though this was never confirmed. Some of the objects found at the site suggested a connection to ancient religions or mythologies, though it was unclear if these were authentic artifacts or just simply replicas. Overall, the specifics of the ritual remained a mystery, as the arrested individuals denied any involvement and refused to divulge any information about their activities. Looking back, I still can't believe that I had never heard of the cult before. It's scary to think that such a dangerous group could be operating right under our noses without anyone knowing. As much as I wanted to forget that night, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the fortunate events that allowed us to escape unharmed, despite the potential danger we faced that night. The thought of what might have happened to the cultists had managed to enter the cabin still sends shivers down my spine. And then the ranger who showed up just in time to save us from the 2 others. If it weren't for these fortunate events, who knows what could have happened to us? It was as if fate had intervened to protect us from harm, or as some higher power was looking out for us that night. We later learned about superstitions surrounding the woods we were in, strange happenings and unusual occurrences in these parts. Some even believed that the forest was cursed and that those who entered were doomed to suffer misfortune. Perhaps the cultists themselves were aware of these superstitions and were afraid of what might happen if they continued their pursuit. Maybe they had some superstition around the cabin, or maybe they had encountered something even more terrifying than what they had bargained for. Wolves don't normally attack people, let alone a group of 20 armed individuals, so why should the cultists be scared? As for the wolves, it's possible that their howling had some significance in the local folklore, and the cultists were wary of disturbing them. It's also possible that the wolves simply acted as a deterrent, scaring off the cultists with their pack mentality and aggressive behavior. Perhaps it was the sheer number of wolves that made the cultists back off, or maybe it was the unexpectedness of the situation. As for the yelling, it could have been a disagreement between the cultists themselves. The weird part is that the cultists didn't come back to the cabin. We waited anxiously for a while, wondering if they would return, but they never did. And then the next day, we encountered 2 cultists in broad daylight. It didn't seem like they had been running, and they were coming from the opposite direction of where we had fled. We hadn't seen anyone following us, and we had run so fast that it seemed unlikely they could have caught up to us. It was a strange and unsettling experience that left us with more questions than answers, and the mystery surrounding the events only added to this eerie atmosphere of the forest. But one thing was certain, we had survived an encounter that could have easily ended in tragedy, and for that, we were fortunate. I don't hike anymore. The thought of being out in the woods and encountering the unknown was no longer thrilling, but terrifying. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of being followed. What did the cultists want with us? Did someone know us? Was the letter only meant to scare us? Are we still in danger? These questions still haunt me to this day. As time passed, we went back to our normal lives and eventually moved out of the area. That night in the woods was a wake-up call for me, a reminder to always stay vigilant, aware, and never underestimate the dangers that could be lurking. Who knows what other dangers are out there, waiting to be discovered. My girlfriend and I were chased by a satanic cult in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. This happened in the summer of 2017. My girlfriend and I are from St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. We both attended university there and decided to take a road trip through the United States to celebrate our graduation. Our destination was Miami, Florida. Her family owns a condo near the beach, so we had a free place to stay. We decided to drive instead of fly because we wanted to see a bit of the country on our way down and visit a few friends. The trip usually takes about 20 to 24 hours by car nonstop, and we were planning on making a couple stops. The first part of the road trip was a wonderful experience. We went shopping in Buffalo, then made our way down to Pittsburgh and managed to catch a Pirates game. However, once we hit West Virginia, things changed. It was nothing but endless wilderness and a few small towns sprinkled in between. We had plans to meet up with some friends for dinner in Charlotte, North Carolina, so we wanted to get through West Virginia ASAP. We only made stops when we absolutely had to. We ended up stopping for gas at a pretty remote spot. My girlfriend and I got out of the car. I started pumping gas and she went inside to use the washroom and pick up some snacks. My tank was about half full when I heard a voice behind me ask, "Y'all lost?" I looked behind me and saw a middle-aged white man with a long, messy brown beard that reached down to his shoulders and an unkempt beard with dashes of grays and what looked to be drops of dried up mucus. His clothes were torn up and dirty and he smelled like a mixture of beer, sweat, pee, and feces. He was a little overweight but pretty tall. I'm 6 foot and he was about 4 inches taller than me. The teeth he still had left were a yellowish brown. On his right cheek, just under his eye, was a tattoo of some kind of pentagram. I'm pretty into YouTube videos about true crime and cults, so I was able to recognize what it was pretty quickly. He was standing very close to my face, to the point where the smell of his breath was making me dizzy, so I backed up. "No sir, just passing through," I said nervously. "Not too often we see tourists passing through these parts," he responded. "Where you headed?" As he said this, he moved even closer than he was before. I had my back up against my car and I couldn't move back any further. I wanted to get away from this guy as quickly as possible, but the car was still filling up with gas and my girlfriend was still inside the gas station. I didn't want this dude to know where we were really going, so I told him I was visiting family in Kentucky and they were expecting us. After I said this, he cracked a weird half smile, just opening his mouth just wide enough for me to get a look at his teeth again. I'll never forget that face. His bloodshot eyes were staring deep into my soul. He let out a weird and sinister laugh. "How lovely," he said. "I'll see you kids around." Then he walked away. I was very relieved that he walked away, but also terrified by his last remarks. I didn't even see him when we pulled up to the gas station, so how did he know I wasn't alone? I figured he must have been watching my girlfriend and I when we arrived. The car was finally filled up and I saw my girlfriend walking toward the car with bags full of snacks for the road. I noticed the weird guy was still at the gas station. He was a few pumps away from us, leaning up against an old red pickup truck, but to my utter discomfort, he wasn't alone. There were 2 other men and 1 woman with them, making the group 4 in total. The 2 men were just as big as he was, but they had shaved heads. One of them was wearing a dirty white tank top and the other had no shirt on at all. The woman was shorter, about 5'5". She was very skinny with heavy bags under her eyes and long blonde hair. They all looked like they had been living in the woods for the past 20 years. They were staring and pointing at us, talking amongst themselves. As soon as my girlfriend got to the car, I urgently told her to get in. I'm usually a pretty calm guy, so when my girlfriend noticed that I was kind of freaking out, she knew something was up. We quickly entered the car, I locked the doors, and I began hauling ass out of the gas station. As we pulled around their red truck to the exit, I noticed there was another pentagram painted on the hood. I also noticed the skull of a goat or ram on their windshield. The 4 people began getting into their truck as they saw us leaving. I knew they were gonna follow us as soon as we left. I explained the situation to my girlfriend as we were speeding away from the gas station. We were zooming down the road and I looked in my rearview mirror. As I expected, the red truck was right behind us. I sped up even more and they did too. I made a left, they did too. I made a full U-turn and they did as well. My girlfriend managed to get reception and dialed 911. We gave the operator our location and they gave us directions to the nearest police station. The operator also asked for the license plate, but the truck didn't have any. Once we were off the phone with them, my girlfriend stuck her cell phone outside the window and started pointing to it, letting the creeps know that we called the police. They finally got the message and stopped following us. We arrived at the police station and filed a report. We gave them the description of the truck and suspects. The investigators said that they would call us if they had any more information. We were extremely shaken but also relieved. All we wanted to do at that point was get the hell out of West Virginia. We thought we had shaken the group for good, but unfortunately, we were wrong. We decided to drive through the night to cover as much ground as possible. The area of Appalachia we were in had no streetlights, and I could only see what my headlights allowed me to see. Everything was fine until I noticed 2 headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think anything of it, but I kept an eye on them. The headlights got closer and closer until they were tailgating us. To my complete shock and horror, it's the same red truck from the gas station. These people had somehow found us again and were right behind us. "It's them," I yelled. My girlfriend began to freak out and dialed 911. I floored the gas pedal, not even knowing what was 10 meters in front of me. All we cared about was escaping. We got a mile up the road until my girlfriend yelled, "Watch out." There were 3 dead cows blocking the narrow road. I slammed on the brakes. The red truck was right behind us and we couldn't go forward. We knew we fell into a trap. All of a sudden, a naked man wearing a goat mask darted from out of the woods and began hitting our car with what looked like a large axe. The naked man got on the hood of our car and started making sheep noises. My girlfriend was still on the phone with 911, but all she could do was scream. The people behind us got out of the red truck and began walking toward our car. 2 of them had rifles and 1 of them had a large machete. I knew what I had to do. I put the car into reverse and floored it. The naked man fell off our car. We smashed into the truck and I managed to knock it into a ditch. After the truck was out of the way, I pulled the fastest U-turn of my life and we got out of there. The people were yelling all kinds of obscenities at us as we drove away. I drove as fast as I could away from these people until we finally got into a town and filed another police report. My girlfriend and I were uninjured, thankfully, but we were extremely traumatized. The car was still drivable after that, so we were able to get the hell out of West Virginia the next morning. The entire experience made my girlfriend and I scared to do any more road trips. I still called the local police department in West Virginia once in a while to see if they have any leads on these people, but so far they've found nothing. The fact that these people were still able to find us right after we went to the police station and drove far away still scares and baffles me to this day. Who knows what kind of sick, twisted things the cult had planned if they managed to catch us. Stay safe out there, everyone. My best friend turned out to be a cult recruiter. 3 years ago, I thought I joined an amazing church. I was never a Jesus freak and, in fact, used to make fun of them as a kid, referring to them as Bible thumpers. During college, that changed. I felt the need to form a relationship with God after the deaths of many close family members. It couldn't have been better timing because I ended up at a new school and a new job where I eventually met Joanna. Joanna was an instant friend. We clicked right away. We shared a passion for music, were studying the same major, and could talk for hours about anything. Joanna and I hung out for about 6 months before I started to notice anything out of the ordinary. Basically, I would never see her on the weekends because she told me she devoted them to her church and her youth group. I didn't think that was strange, but I was curious and asked her what religion she was. She told me non-denominational, then quickly changed the subject. Joanna started showing up to work less and less, and she started missing classes. She was always tired when she did show up or looked completely drained or out of it. Rumors around school and work were that she was on drugs. I knew that this was false because both of us had a disdain for drugs and others who partied hard like that. Joanna had less and less time to spend with friends, so I would rarely see her. After about 1 month of this, she called me out of the blue to go to a Denny's. We met up and she pulled out her phone. She showed me a YouTube video of a recent volunteer activity she did with her church group. Joanna explained to me that she volunteered a lot at her church and it took a lot of her time up. The video quality was excellent for a church video and it played almost like a short film. The passion she had talking about all the good deeds they do and how fun it was piqued my interest. I asked her the name of the church. Again, she did not disclose but said non-denominational Christian. She asked me to come with her right now because it was better I see it myself. I found that strange because it was 10 p.m. on a night on a Wednesday. I went into a small office/warehouse looking building. I found it strange that a church wouldn't have signs or any pictures of Jesus in the space. It looked like a child's daycare or learning center. Immediately, women rushed over and hugged me. It was unreal. I later learned I got love bombed. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a corner of a room with a woman slightly older and Joanna. She had a dry erase board and started teaching me about the Bible. The Bible study made sense, but soon after, she asked me if I was ready to be baptized. It was now around 11:30 p.m. and I felt some sort of obligation. I had no ride home, had no idea where I was, and these these happy, shiny people were cooking for me and teaching me the Bible. How could I say no? I was hesitant, but the intensity grew and I could feel the attitude start to change to desperation. They promised it would only take a few minutes and that God was watching and I may die if I deny being baptized after learning the truth. So, like an idiot, I agreed and was rushed into a bathroom to get changed into a white robe. When I let them know that I had changed, they ushered me into a bathtub where a small Asian man walked in. Apparently, he was a pastor. He told me not to be nervous and that the water would be warm. I knelt in the shower with the lights dimmed while the rest of the women came in wearing veils over the head, singing in some strange monotone voices. I heard him baptize me in the name of an Asian god, and that's when I got freaked out. Once I left, I was baffled and nervous. It's such an intense feeling. I was still stuck there as Joanna had driven me way out into another county and I had no idea how to leave. They made me more food and later told me that the name I was baptized under would later be explained to me when I returned to study more. Everyone kept telling me how I was part of the family now. I ended up returning and being pretty heavily brainwashed by this group, to the point where I felt like they were my family. I did things I'm not proud of. I helped recruit people and spent hours and days and weeks there. Eventually, I found out that Joanna was just a recruiter, which I would soon turn out to be. Someone who just forms fake friendships to bring more young women into the group. I escaped mentally and deprogrammed and defellowshipped. It was a truly haunting experience that no young female should go through. I still see Joanna time to time with her vicious wolf pack preaching to women on campus and malls. I usually hide or run the other way. Joanna, let's not meet ever again. The cult at Target. This incident just occurred a few hours ago and it is still making my head spin. Forgive me if it seems lengthy, but an awful lot was said. My mother, sister, and I, female and 18 years old, were shopping in our local Target. As we stroll around, I recognize a girl named Stacy, also 18 years old, that I used to go to school with. For reference, I dropped out of high school my senior year, so I haven't been in my old high school or seen anyone from there for about a year now. I simply glance at her and keep on moving, doubting that she recognized me because I haven't been in school for a year. A few minutes later, I'm on the complete opposite side of the store when I see this girl again. Like last time, our eyes awkwardly met and I tried to just walk past her, but this time she actually said something. Hey, didn't we play tennis together? Stacy spoke with wide eyes and a painfully large smile. There was a girl standing next to her, but I didn't recognize her. I simply replied yes in response. I was never friends with her in school. In fact, I never talked to her or even liked her. That's when she introduced herself as if I completely forgot who she was. She goes on to question if I still went to high school, in which I explained that I graduated early with online classes. The conversation started out normal. I thought it was simply us catching up due to the fact that I had been absent from school. I kept wanting to cut the conversation short, but Stacy kept prodding about what I was doing now, am I in college, and what college was like. Harmless questions. In fact, I didn't mind answering her questions. Then the conversation took an unexpected twist. Stacy somehow weaseled the conversation into one about God and Christianity. For reference, I do consider myself a Christian, but not one of those hardcore ones who are constantly spewing Bible quotes at strangers. She asked if I attend church, to which I responded with yes. Her eyes became even wider and her smile even bigger. Her whole mantra of God sounded like this. Back in my high school days, I was always partying and being so happy, but that was all fake and no one knew that I was actually pretty sad. That's when I found this church that showed me God's way in his undying love. He accepted me and he'll accept you too. Now I'm always happy because I have God on my side. And at this church, God truly appears before your very eyes. He cured me of all my physical and mental ailments, like when I messed up my knee in tennis. The whole time Stacy spoke, there was just a robotic tone about it, as if these words were memorized, practiced, and rehearsed. There was almost no genuine emotion in her, just wide eyes and a never-failing smile. Then her friend, Ashley, late teens or early 20s, began her speech. Keep in mind, my mother and sister are just an aisle away waiting on me. Ashley's speech went like this. For a while in life, I suffered with depression and suicide. I was always faking to be happy until I found this church. This church truly opened my eyes and heart. I no longer feel dead inside. This is when she hinted that maybe I feel dead inside too, and the only way to recover from it is to look to God. Ashley also used the word zombie to describe this dead feeling, and that's when I began to really think that there's something wrong with these girls. Ashley continued on saying, I don't think it's a mere coincidence that we ran into you. God led me to you. He wanted me to reveal to you the way God put a vision in my mind of you opening a present, and that present is our Lord and Savior. She kept ranting about how it's destiny that we met, and that God put Stacy and Ashley in my life to reveal himself to me. When Ashley mentioned depression and suicide, I could not help but to believe her for a slight second. I had been struggling with depression for years but kept it quiet, and with me being a believer in God, I was almost fooled into thinking that this is a sign from God, telling me to finally open up and get help. But when Ashley began to ramble about her church, the foolish hope I had dissipated quickly. Then the two moved the conversation onto their church. They kept stating that it wasn't a normal church and that God himself in flesh and blood came to them at that church. They informed me that God came to them to heal them of misery and grief. Ashley then pulled out a business card which had the church's email, a Bible quote, and her personal phone number. Before the anticipated departure, they kept saying how cool I am and that they're glad they met me, and then we finally parted ways. I remember my legs being extremely weak when I walked away. That's when it clicked. Are they a part of a cult? Their mannerisms and behavior seemed too scripted to be real. That's when my sister found me and answered my suspicions. Apparently, before I had to endure that 10-minute chat with Stacy and Ashley, my sister overheard the girls were having the same conversation with another girl on the opposite side of the store. So this was all scripted, and it was their way of luring and persuading strangers to join their church. I realize now how they did it too. To reel me into discussion, they discussed my absence from school and experience in college. To reel in the other girl they talked with, they started by complimenting her outfit and inquiring about her artistic hobbies. I wonder how many people they ended up talking to, and if they were just walking around the store hoping to find easy targets to talk to. I have so many questions, and that's what bothers me the most about this. And being the somewhat religious person that I am, their talk of God unnerved me. It's kind of humorous to think of now simply because I think crazy God lovers are comical, but I'm still bewildered. If you have any information about how cults operate and how they coax people into joining them, please let me know. Does this incident sound like a cult member trying to spread their message, or just harmless teenage girls spreading the love of God? If you have any other questions about what occurred in my interaction with them, please ask. Also, it's possible that I'll see Stacy again because she is attending my college next semester. Although Stacy and Ashley seemed harmless and just overly excited about God, I honestly hope that we never meet again. My cult encounter. So I'm now in my retirement days, 32 years as a firefighter, and I love to travel the world, but anyways, one day when I was 22, I was traveling in Europe for a summer and I was in Germany for a couple of days. Germany is such a fascinating place, but anyways, I was in a village called Cochem. I was staying there with some friends and my soon-to-be wife. Well, we were eating at this pub and I stepped outside to smoke my pipe that I had bought while we were in Scotland. But I remember the story clear as day. It was almost dark. I had just started getting my tobacco ready. I then walked around the building to the back, puffing as I went, when I saw a glow coming from a wooded area. Since there was still some light out, enough that I could see, I decided to walk towards it. First mistake. I then noticed it was a bonfire that someone had made with logs tied with a twine-like rope, made into a square, one on top of the other. I was already seen by a man with a big bushy beard and mid-length hair who had a brown cloak on with a hood. He didn't say anything to me, but knowing that I was already seen and that it would be kind of awkward to go back at this point, I just stood next to him by the fire, puffing my pipe. I then said hello. Of course, he did not know English. Second mistake. He then said something in German, and I caught the end of it, knowing very little but what I was taught there. What I caught was the word back. He then started walking off. I should have taken that time to walk away, but my curiosity got the better of me. I waited until he returned with a man who had a black beard and was bald. He spoke English and asked me if I was here to undergo the joining. Whatever that meant, I thought to myself. I kindly declined, but he said, well, you're here, so I really can't let you leave without knowing who exactly you are. The guy next to him with the brown beard then said something in German, and the guy with the black beard just asked me for some identification. Me, being the worrywart I am, thought it was a scam, so I just said I'd be on my way. The blackbeard guy said no once more and then told me that I could not leave until he knew for sure I'd forget everything I saw set up here. To me, I was confused and then looked around because I only saw the bonfire, and I noticed all the different skulls hanging, ranging from human to cow. I was then officially freaked out, then basically agreed to the threat and ran away like a pussy. But I then felt watched for the rest of my time in the village, and I decided it was time to move to a different village when we were supposed to stay on another day. Creepiest moment of my life, and I do believe it was a secret society. I live below a cult leader, and I fear I've angered her. I, female 28, have lived in the same apartment for about 4 years. My neighbors in the unit above me are a couple in their 30s who have lived there for about 3 years with no issues between us. During the past 6 months, I've noticed some changes in their behavior. At first, it was just a few days per week. I'd hear music with heavy bass accompanied by rhythmic jumping. I assumed they bought an exercise bike or something, but sometimes the jumping gets so intense that it shakes to my overhead light fixtures. The jumping routine has been escalating to the point that it takes place every day, normally between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. I also noticed that they called 1-800-JUNK and got rid of a lot of nice possessions. However, I figured none of this was my business, so I kept my observations to myself. About 3 weeks ago, everything escalated. Multiple times per week, on weekdays and during working hours, it sounds like they're hosting a mini Burning Man event in their apartment. The music is so loud and clear that it sounds like I'm at a concert while sitting in my living room. There's clearly a lot of people involved because the jumping/stomping shakes multiple light fixtures and cabinets. The music is a mix of new age/spiritual vibes, dance beats, and a male voiceover giving weird instructions like rebrand yourself, surrender yourself, stomp stomp in response. I've taken audio recordings on my phone and one video from the hallway during these events. I still didn't complain to the building, but I wanted evidence in case it became a regular thing. This week, I've encountered a big problem. The couple above me has a private patio, which is directly above my bedroom. I came home from a 3-day trip out of town yesterday, and my ceiling is legitimately collapsing in one corner. Big chunks of plaster had fallen to the ground, and I saw a little water. I immediately called my superintendent since I don't want to be buried alive by ceiling rubble if it gives out. When he came to check it out, he was shocked and pissed. He said that the woman in the couple appears to be working with some people during workshops or something. He can see their patio from his apartment window and has watched the group do these dancing, jumping, dirt rituals out there on a weekly basis. He said they all dance and jump to the music and then spread dirt along with something else, he doesn't know what it is, across the patio on a weekly basis. He believes the dirt and unknown substance combo is getting through the wooden cracks, absorbing water, and weighing down my ceiling. In order to fix this, my super said that he had to go talk to the woman, check out their patio, and ultimately hire a contractor to pull up the wood to scrape out whatever the hell is causing my ceiling to fall. I could hear them talking from my room, and the woman sounded distraught and defensive. When my super left, he called me and warned me that she might try to come down to my apartment and demand to see the damage, but don't let her in. This was a little concerning to me. Is she a threat? The damage is real, I wouldn't mind showing her. She started playing her music again relatively loud, kind of like a warning shot. I mentioned the music and jumping to the super and said I had audio recordings. He started begging me to send the evidence to the front desk. It sounds like he wants them evicted. I said, okay, sure. I hate to be a rat, but if I have to choose sides, I'll side with the building that dictates my annual rent price. He called me twice more that afternoon to confirm that I shared my evidence, and I said yes. Shortly after everything went down, I left my apartment to run an errand. The woman was outside just standing on the sidewalk and stared at me the whole time as I walked by. I ignored her. This isn't my fault. Now today, I went to run another quick errand in the neighborhood. When I returned, the couple was again standing on the sidewalk, both of them this time, followed me into the building and then waited until I was opening my apartment door to confront me. They were both wearing creepy fake smiles. The woman has horsehair girl down to her waist and started interrogating me. They asked, is your ceiling really collapsing? When did it start? Do you think it was related to the recent rainfall? Because our patio is just fine. I was a little uncomfortable. Were they waiting for me outside? How did they know I even left the building? Why were they both standing there? I've literally never seen them enter together in their 3 years of living here. But I have nothing to hide, so I confirmed the damage is pretty bad. I just don't want it to fall during the winter. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but hopefully the work will be done quickly for everyone's sake. They seemed satisfied enough, so I said have a good day and shut my door. I'm getting the sense that they're nervous about what the contractors will find when they tear open their patio. What the hell is up with the dirt rituals? Who are these people she's working with? I don't even know what they look like or why they're available to stomp around on weekdays. The repair work has started on both sides, but the contractors will come on Wednesday for the grand reveal of what's under the patio that's making my ceiling collapse. In the meantime, I feel like I need to be alert and keep my eyes out for these people as well as the couple. It's unusual for me to see them in general, especially twice in 2 days. They seemed scared and in denial of the problem. They also literally ambushed me. Hopefully it's over soon. Update. The contractors came today and reported that there was, in fact, dirt and sludge visible below the neighbor's patio. However, thanks to the help of my internet sleuthing friend, I've gained a lot more insight into the realm that dwells above me. As one Redditor suggested, nice work, my neighbor is affiliated with multiple ecstatic dance communities, both international and local. The international group has planned events during which all cells of the organization host dance sessions simultaneously. It also has a YouTube channel that streams psytrance music 24/7. I listened to a portion of it and a female voiceover declared, "You are becoming the game master." Meanwhile, the local groups seem to be more exclusive and more radical in their mindset. One of the local groups, hosted by my neighbor's good friend, conducts 3-day events that cost upwards of $400 for admission. Participation in all 3 days is mandatory. I get the impression they all sleep in the studio space. and the event description mentions that it begins with a ritual. The last and darkest affiliation that I've confirmed via social media footprints is that my neighbor and a few members of the local communities are also involved with some compassionate death groups. There's no way for me to verify at this time if these affiliations overlap in a meaningful way, so I'll simply state the facts that I have evidence to prove. My super asked me about the jumping again when I saw him today. He remains eager to act. He agreed with my new game plan to wait for another large event to happen and then call him to check on my dishwasher so he can intervene. So for now, the ways in which the puzzle pieces of ecstatic dance, compassionate death, patio death rituals, and a ceiling collapse connect will remain a mystery. Update again. For those who are familiar with my unsettling neighborly encounters, I have a mix of both terrifying and somewhat encouraging updates to share. On Monday, my super came to replaster my bedroom ceiling. First, he said that my neighbor told the contractor she has a lot of plants because it makes bush medicines. She's also told him that dancing is a part of her professional practice as a healer for people who are in bereavement after the loss of a loved one. So my friend and I weren't far off when we made the connection between her ecstatic dance and compassionate death affiliations. I showed him the new cracks in my living room ceiling that are growing in size and number by the day. He told me to send videos of the cracks to building management, but management suggested I start with a handwritten note by their door explaining how their behaviors are wreaking havoc on my life. Since the super was working in my apartment, my neighbor was actively bumping music and jumping. I wrote a note in which I requested she reduce the volume of her music and be mindful of the intensity of her activities. I explained that the jumping or dancing was causing significant new cracks in my living room ceiling, and I offered for her to speak with me directly if needed. While I was reluctant to suggest this, I knew she might try another stalking trick if I didn't give her the option up front. So I sent her the note. After 90 minutes, my super said he had to leave for an hour while the plaster dried, but he'd be back soon. Of course, my neighbor chose the end of this time frame to come down when I was alone. When I opened the door, she again had the biggest fake smile and said, "Hi," then waved the note. First of all, she said, "I want to thank you for your open communication. That is so important and so rare in our city." Fake flattery. She admitted that she dances, which she, quote, has to for her mental health. But she claimed that she only dances in the mornings for 30 to 60 minutes or 90 minutes max. I knew she was lying, so I said that her actions are affecting my mental health. She followed up with a range of excuses, including that they have been in the process of rearranging furniture, unpacking boxes, and they sometimes watch movies in the evening with their loudspeakers. I showed her the cracks that were immediately visible from the doorway area. She pointed to one and said, "See, we used to have one table over there, but now we have two due to the furniture rearranging, so maybe that's the reason? We also have cracks on our ceiling and, we all have to share this space." I asked her about hosting any large events in the past month, which she flat out denied. She briefly mentioned that she does sessions, but didn't elaborate further. The following suggestion I later realized was entrapment. My neighbor said she would give me her phone number, go upstairs, lower the volume, and then I should text to let her know if I can still hear it. Thankfully, my super came back while she was in the process of sharing her contact information. She immediately tensed up, quickly gave the number, and then scurried off. As she passed my super, she randomly blurted out, "We're best friends now," referring to me and her. My super and I are both very aware of the antics, so of course, he didn't buy the manipulation tactic. I texted her that I couldn't hear the music now, to which she responded, "So glad to hear that. Thanks again for opening a line of communication. I'm always happy to chat. Hope you have a lovely day. Prayer hands plus a heart emoji." In retrospect, I think she wasn't playing any music at all. I also feel like our conversation was riddled with gaslighting, misdirection, and flat-out lies. I was somewhat confused, but I know what I've been experiencing and have plenty of evidence to prove it. Within hours of our conversation, my neighbor started up the loud music and dancing as if nothing had happened. I was furious. I took new audio recordings and immediately emailed building management with my new evidence, footage of the ceiling cracks, along with a photo of my note. I explained that my neighbor was kind, though somewhat misleading, and expressed interest in accommodating my requests. I also said her behaviors were continuing as normal despite the false claims that she would take my experiences into account. The building manager said to keep her updated, but it was clear she assumed the situation would be resolved on its own. Nope, my neighbor continued with the incessant bass-heavy music plus jumping shenanigans the next day and the day after. I continued to document everything. On Wednesday evening, I went up for a quick errand and again was a victim of the stalking tricks. She ran into me as I was entering the building, waited till I passed her on the stairwell, and then spoke up. She acknowledged that I've probably still been hearing her activities the past couple days and that I will continue to hear them for the next few days, all due to rearranging furniture. She said the coffee table had been sold that day. Not true. I was working in my living room all day and would have heard such a commotion in the stairwell. I said, yes, I've been hearing loud and clear. Shortly after this in-person encounter, my neighbor went on to host a party. I heard people in the stairwell who seemed unfamiliar with whose apartment they were even visiting, and one guest introduced herself as a friend of someone else. While the music was much lower, the group began running back and forth overhead. Hearing these strange activities without the music was somewhat creepier than with the music. I took more recordings, then retreated to my bedroom, but of course, the group decided to migrate to their patio, right above my head again. By 10:30 p.m., I had enough. They were no longer dancing, but the group's chatter, along with ethereal music, a female soprano singing vocalizations, was too much. I sent her a text. I explained that I understand she has every right to host guests in her space, but I was perturbed by the way that she'd said to my face that any excess noise I might hear in the coming days was due to arranging furniture. I said I could hear music and conversations very clearly as the noise filters through my AC unit. I also said to please let me know if they'll be hosting events in the future so I'm not caught off guard. Well, my neighbor didn't respond that night. Within minutes of sending my message, the group began to sing the happy birthday song in the most somber way I've ever heard it sung. I was able to record the second half of it. They sang in a monotone and there was no clapping, cheering, or any standard signs of merriment that occur after singing the song usually. The following afternoon, my neighbor sent me a wall of text in which she continued to lie. She said that the gathering was very small, only 4 friends, and that it didn't even cross her mind to let me know when she saw me earlier. She also said it was the first time they had ever hosted more than 2 people over this entire year. I honestly had to laugh at that. She said when she first saw my text, they lowered the music volume and told the friends to quiet down. So she admitted that she saw my text but made no mention of any birthday affair. As for the furniture rearranging, she explained that it's been part of a quote longer term project, smiley face, and added more lies like how they had just received a dining table and a bookshelf they'd been waiting for 8 months. Not only would I have seen such large packages in the stairwell, but also why share such irrelevant information if being truthful? Finally, my neighbor said that they would be hosting 2 more events next week. Another small gathering of 4 people next Wednesday in honor of her partner's birthday, and a larger gathering on Friday, again for his birthday. Like I said, she made no mention of singing happy birthday the night before. Who would host 3 birthday parties over 2 weeks? It was all false. She followed up 5 minutes later with a second text that explained she was late to respond because she'd been in back-to-back sessions. So I finally had written evidence of her talking about these sessions. I didn't respond to the text. I refused to engage her or her partner any further. They continued to play music and stomp around that evening, but I had my boyfriend and a friend over who heard everything and validated me that all this is absolutely maddening. On Friday, I finally called my building manager to explain everything. She needed to understand that something very strange and potentially dangerous is going on above me. Thankfully, I was finally believed. It turns out my building had no idea she was running some form of a business and hosting group events. I thought they at least had a vague awareness. The building manager said they would get the attorney involved ASAP to review their lease contract and pursue action. She asked for all my evidence, including written communications, a personal written account of verbal communications, audio recordings, and footage of ceiling damage. I've been taking videos of the ceiling cracks over the past few weeks to demonstrate how they've been growing. I made a Google folder that divided each category, dated each piece of evidence, and sent. I was so relieved. It felt like some form of action was finally in motion. I assumed the building attorney was working on a case against him over the weekend, so I ignored their relentless music plus jumping. But today, Sunday, my neighbors have been hosting yet another gathering since 11:30 a.m. I've been hearing heavy bass, sporadic jumping, and chatting on their patio for going on 7.5 hours now. While I've continued to collect my evidence, I decided to wait until tomorrow to check in with management. Around 5 p.m., I was quietly sitting on my couch when out of nowhere I heard the door open from above. Someone jogged down and then pounded on my front door. I didn't move a muscle. The person on the other side waited for about a minute. I thought I heard keys jingling, and then they slowly retreated back upstairs and shut the door again. Honestly, I have no idea what's going on. The music plus jumping increased after the knocking incident. Maybe they were testing if I was home, but I'm rattled by how I'm feeling watched when I'm minding my own business. At the same time, I want to keep laying low to protect myself. I still have very little information about this group. They're clearly escalating. 3 events planned within 1 week, despite added pressure from everyone around them. In the meantime, I edited a new video with my recent recordings, including the creepiest happy birthday of all time, footage of the living room ceiling damage, audio recordings from the gatherings. Whenever my neighbors succeed in making contact or I'm notified about a solid resolution, I will update the post. Please don't comment with remind me notifications, but to whoever's listening, thank you for supporting me during this insane neighborly crisis. Alright guys, I really hope you enjoyed these Reddit stories. Seriously, I love making these videos, so let me know if you enjoy them. Subscribe for more again, and everybody have a great night. Sweet dreams.